and I'm presenting you the 9-minute marketing crash course. Let's get started. What is marketing supposed to do? Well, marketing should capture the attention of your target market. Then give them hope that reading or listening to the ad will give them enough information to facilitate their making the best decision possible when buying whatever you sell. Then give them a specific, low risk, easy to take action that will further facilitate their ability to make a good decision. Bottom line, the ad should make the prospect feel like they would have to be an absolute fool to do business with anybody else but you, regardless of the price. Now, I must ask you, does your marketing currently do this? In a world full of crummy marketing and advertising, almost all advertising does a poor job, if not a terrible job, of one, getting qualified prospects to pay attention, two, getting those who do pay attention to remain interested, and three, building any kind of case for why someone would want to even take action, four, giving a prospect any kind of option other than a buy it now, and five, making the advertiser as much money as he or she should be making. So right now, advertising is doing a terrible job of getting anybody to do anything. The history of marketing and advertising plays a large portion in our inept ability to advertise. In the early days of advertising, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, most companies competed on a local or even a regional basis. Competition was fierce, and much of the advertising was comparative in nature. See why we're better than them, here's how we stack up against them. This forced advertisers to use their brains when crafting their ads. In post-World War II, everything changed. Americans had unprecedented prosperity, they had unprecedented income, and they had free time that started to grow rapidly. Most significantly, post-World War II brought us the boob tube, television. In 1945, TV was first commercially introduced, and there were fewer than 7,000 sets, and only 9 stations in only 5 markets. By 1951, just 6 years later, there were 12 million black and white TV sets. A year later, 20 million. In 1955, prime-time advertising spots started costing $4,000 a minute. This is 1955. In 1957, Variety magazine reports viewers encountered 420 commercials a week, totaling 5 hours and 8 minutes. This was 50 years ago. Television brought the era of the brand builders. National companies had a new medium to reach the entire United States. Because of the limited supply of ads, costs went up quickly. Commercials shrank from 2 minutes down to 30 seconds, and advertisers had less time to build a case, so the slogans became popular. Aren't you glad you use Dial? Ring around the collar, melts in your mouth, not in your hands. Finally, logos became the most cost-effective way to advertising, and McDonald's abandoned their "You deserve a break today" slogan because it cost too much, and they instructed their ad agency to just flash the golden arches as many times as they could in 30 seconds. 1950s to today, national companies made fortunes by advertising on the boob tube. Ad agencies and business schools benchmarked these large companies. Institutional advertising was the calling card of the big, rich companies. So everyone drew the obvious conclusion. That must be how you do it. Ad agencies, business schools, and advertisers don't know any other way but this way. The emulation of the Fortune 500 advertising has been going on for well over 40 years now by all sizes of companies. Institutional and menu board style advertising. Huge budgets. Here's some statistics from 1999. Pepsi spent $1.31 billion on advertising. Procter & Gamble, $2.61 billion. McDonald's, $1.13 billion. General Motors, over $4 billion. Coca-Cola had 300,000 billboards, 20,000 walls with their logo painted on it, 5 million soda glasses, 4 million newspaper impressions in 1930. So the symptoms of the brand builder emulation, the focus is primarily on getting attention. There's heavy reliance on design, pictures, and humor, and the ad agency's C&R formula. Creativity equals 25-year-olds sitting around thinking of bad crap. And repetition, get your brand into the brain enough times. Deficiencies in effectiveness are made up for with repetition, which is fine. And you don't need to listen any further if your ad budget is over 250 million bucks a year. But if it's not, you need to learn to expunge the brand builder emulation from your mindset. So, the days of simple selling. We're going to talk about 10 to 20 years ago, how easy it was to sell. First, you had the seller and you had the buyer. There were fewer competitors in almost every market. There were fewer choices, and there was low technology, and there was low education needed to convince the buyer to buy what you're selling. So they didn't require much information, and there was low resistance to buying because they needed what you sell, and it was easier to make a buying decision all around. So back then, the seller had the power, and the buyer had very few options. The confidence gap, which is the new paradigm shift to marketing, creates a different picture. First, you have the poor old seller and the mean old buyer, and between them is the confidence gap. There was an entrepreneurial boom, increased technology, there was more competitors, there were more choices, there was increased information available via internet or direct mail for consumers to decide what they were going to buy, and therefore there was increased resistance, longer buying cycles, price competition, products were all commodities, and they all had identical marketing messages. And because of this, the buyer had the inability to determine one company from the other, and so price became the main issue. Now the buyer has all the power, and the poor seller is at his mercy. So the confidence gap is the buyer's inability to determine whether any of the businesses or any of the products or any of the services are any better or any different or any worse than any of the others. The buyer feels like he doesn't have control, so he stalls, thinks, compares, and tries to gather more information. So back to our picture here. Sales skills start once you cross the confidence gap, and marketing is what crosses the confidence gap. Your marketing needs to be concise and well articulated, should be powerfully stated, it should be low to no pressure, and it should be one-way communication. Lay down all the information that the buyer would need. And the great thing is your marketing materials aren't afraid of rejection. Your marketing, so on the buyer standpoint, your marketing is non-obtrusive, should be reviewed at their own pace, reviewed when it's convenient, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, doesn't matter, and they can ignore it if they're not interested, and there's no or low commitment on their part. Thanks a lot. That's a 9-minute marketing crash course. For more information, visit www.commonsuccessuniversity.com or email me at corey@commonsuccess.com.